Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Akarja, welcome once again to the Irish NFL show. I'm Mark Cockrell, and I'm joined by the erstwhile Brian O'Leary tonight. Brian, good evening to you.
Good evening, Mark. As you can see in the background, the lights are on. Christmas has arrived in the O'Leary household. Probably a little bit ahead of schedule. Haven't even gone past Thanksgiving, which we're going to preview this evening in terms of the three games. But when you've got young children, you know yourself.
I drew the line that it's not going up before Thanksgiving, to which my wife pointed out that the toy show's tomorrow night, so it's going up tomorrow. So I got a day reprieve, Brian. So I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
We're down a couple this evening. We hope to hear from our erstwhile reporter on the ground in Minnesota, actually, Colin Cronin, who's going to the game there tomorrow night, the prime time Thanksgiving night game between the Vikings and the Patriots. But in the first instance, Brian, you're quite right. We're going to be talking about the three Thanksgiving games. Before we get onto that, there was a small game played on Monday night. We haven't necessarily had our Monday night football breakdown, so we might as well touch on that game between the 49ers and the Kyler Murray-less, Colt McCoy-led Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, it played out essentially as, for a change, all four of us made the one selection. We were all on the same page in terms of we felt it would be a convincing win for the 49ers, and that it was. Started off a little bit sluggish, but he got going, and I think, by the middle of the third quarter, I think the game was essentially wrapped up. Doc Garoppolo was quite impressive in this game. I felt it would be McCaffrey that would lead them to the victory, but in fairness to Garoppolo, got plenty of time, and as I know Colin has his concerns about him come playoff time, but during the regular season, give him time with the players at his disposal. The 49ers are a dangerous team. You touched on it. You called them out to be the NFC team within the Super Bowl come February. It's not against the realms of possibility. They're now sitting on top of the division at 6-4. They play the Saints this weekend, which is a very winnable game. Bear in mind the current plight in which the Saints are in. But for Garoppolo, I was impressed. 229 yards, 4 touchdowns. Good to see Kittle getting back in on the action. He's been a real strong player for them over the past few years. This year he's kind of reverted back to more of a blocking tight end, so it's good to see him get out. And McCaffrey only had 39 yards rushing in the game, 67 in receptions, which is a great attribute to have in terms of a running back to be able to add that to the team. But it was very convincing against the Cards team that we felt are, going in the wrong direction. The last game played on the international series this year in terms of the three in the UK, obviously the German game and now the Mexico game, looked like a great evening for the people that were at the game. But again, this is a big divisional win for the 49ers. They're going in the right direction.
Yeah, George Kittle turning up in his luchador Mexican wrestling mask as well for the evening, which was quite entertaining. And there's a few memes going around about how suave Jimmy G was showing up to the game. Jimmy GQ, as some like to call him. You're right. We said it beforehand. Two teams potentially going in a little bit of an opposite direction. 49ers growing a bit of confidence, growing a bit of hope. Cardinals, especially with Murray being injured, unfortunately heading to a very disappointing season. And surely Cliff Kingsbury, when we talk about, there's been a lot of talk that this might be a seminal year in terms of coaching turnover. Head coach wise, Cliff Kingsbury is certainly going to be in question, especially with the news breaking today as well about his offensive line coach and running game consultant being fired for some impropriety in Mexico. So that doesn't bode well in terms of the buck stops with the head coach as well. So his responsibility ultimately in relation to that equally also. So look, great win for the 49ers. They're heading in the right direction. Hopefully they can gel it all with their amazing talents, with Samuel, with Kittle, etc. in due course. But now we go live to Minnesota. Hello, the shore. Colin Cronin joining the show. How are you doing, Colin?
Very well, Mark. From the properly up in the boonies here in Minnesota. But just to give people a view, I don't know if people can actually see the lake effect and the snow that is up here. So it'll be the snow that'll be welcoming the Patriots obviously tomorrow. But in a dome game, I don't think that is going to make any difference. I heard just before I came on, you were talking about the Cards, and all the talk over here certainly at the moment is around Sean Payton, and It apparently is the Cards or the Chargers that Sean is interested in. Obviously, one to keep an eye on. But yeah, it has been interesting to be kind of following it on this time zone. It seems to be the week for what would you say, consequences perhaps, with Melvin Gordon getting cut from the Broncos, with Zach Wilson now not just dropping to QB2 but to QB3, and how that might play out, and obviously Davis Mills getting benched as well. So lots of change as always in the NFL.
That's right. And we were just talking before the show started. Henderson, I think, Brian, you were saying, has also been cut as well and picked up by the Jags.
Yeah, I suppose it's a surprising one because everybody felt Akers was the one that would be released, having been taken out of the picture recently and then brought back in. But yeah, they've released him and quickly picked up by the Jags, and maybe not a surprise because they didn't need a backup to Etienne, who's being their marquee number one running back this year, but obviously they need someone to kind of support time, I suppose, as the games progress, particularly when they're playing the Ravens this weekend.
Absolutely. And Colin, if I was Sean Payton and you give me the choice, I would just say I will take Justin Herbert over Kyler Murray. Thanks very much and appreciate all the fish. Now, Colin, as we said, we're on tonight to a quick preview of the 3 key Thanksgiving shows. And I know you're under time pressure there in the US. So let's do them in reverse order and focus on the game that you are, as you said, going to tomorrow night and all the snow, albeit in a lovely dome-controlled scenario. Assuming, of course, the roof doesn't collapse in Minnesota, has happened in the past. Let's talk about the Vikings and the Patriots first off then, and give you the conch, as it were, to break it down, especially what you're hearing about locally there in Minnesota and what you're looking forward to seeing in the game specifically.
Yeah, a lot of people, I suppose, here. I mean, it's been interesting because on the way over, going through U.S. Customs, the guy made sure to have a chuckle at Russell Wilson and stopped off in New York, and the waiter had a joke at Russell Wilson's expense. And I was saying that a lot of people I met in Denver in the lead up to Sunday were talking about, they've no interest anymore. They're kind of done with watching a boring football team, which that should be terrifying to the franchise. The Vikings up here in Minnesota, people are very surprised at how it's gone thus far, and kind of obviously disappointed with the weekend, but a feeling, and I get it, that maybe coming off the back of kind of the emotional win the previous week in overtime, and that essentially, the feeling is this will be huge. If the Vikings can bounce back then and show, that last week was, an anomaly as such, and they can move on from this. But if Bill Belichick and the Patriots were to do a number on the Vikings, this could really, perhaps begin to see the wheels come off. They're so far ahead in the division, it's probably not going to impact on that, but what it would mean, I suppose, for a deep playoff run. So that is kind of the feeling here, and I have no doubt that Bill Belichick will be relishing the fact that he has ruined the Jets week. I thought what was very interesting was his comment, not just and this was before the news about Wilson came out, but the fact that they used the bye week to get ahead on. Now, maybe that was Bill just, throwing yet another barb towards the Jets, but to use the bye week to look ahead, to get a head start on the Vikings, that was quite something. And look, I think tomorrow night's going to be really interesting because you have got, Kirk Cousins under lights. He needs to prove it. This has been Kirk Cousins' big problem, is in prime time he has not showed up. And can he do that tomorrow night and get the Vikings back on track? If they respond, then, while I think people here, I really do temper down expectations. We've seen in the past, and you only have to go back to the Bucs for a team who, went on to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if the Vikings are going to do that, but in terms of a deep playoff run, you can lose a game by 30 points during the season and still make a deep playoff run.
I'm interested to see how the Patriots offense plays in this game, because there was some really good, strong drives last week against the Jets, which is all kind of taken away by the fact in terms of the manner how the game played. There was key sacks for the Jets on at certain critical times in those drives, but in fairness to Mac Jones, one of his better games, no interception, 23 of 27, 246 yards. He went up and down the field for large parts of the game, just didn't punch it in. Stevenson had another good game. Defensively, they were really sound again against, we've seen what's happened today with Wilson now being dropped for the game on Sunday for the Jets, with Mike White going to be stepping into playing this game. But the Patriots, you look at it and do they match up, and can this Vikings offense get back to what they've been doing, which was playing very expansive offense. Cook had scored 5 touchdowns in his last 6 games before last week. This defense for the Patriots, I think, bearing in mind the result that last weekend, as Colin suggested, you're going to expect a reaction from the Vikings team. I think the Patriots defense will have to be really up for it tomorrow night, in which is a very difficult game on the road.
Yeah, two quick things. One is we're talking about Zach Wilson a couple of times there, obviously being dropped. Another bit of news we should have called out. Sam Darnold's going to start for the Panthers at the weekend. So as one Jets protege kind of falls off, another maybe rise again. No, it's the Panthers. They're not rising again. But
I can see the nervousness in Colin's face already, bearing in mind they're playing the Broncos.
Yeah, well, at least he's going to get a chance. So that'll be and good luck to the still very young man, shall we say.
I did mention that. I did ask on the show over the last few weeks, how many more changes will the Panthers have at QB? And they may not be finished yet.
I think the Cards one year when they were absolutely thwarted by injuries, had 5 starters at QB in a season. Maybe the Panthers are going for the record. Maybe that's their ultimate goal or aim in relation to this. I also wanted to mention, of course, the Irish NFL show is, as always, presented in association with our partners at Cassidy Travel. So if you're thinking of a Thanksgiving trip like Colin is on maybe for next year, or even a trip on the playoffs, check out their NFL packages in relation to it. Do you know, it's funny, Colin, you're going to be freezing your little tush off for most of your time there in Minnesota, except hopefully when you're in the Dome watching the game and enjoying that scenario. And this Minnesota offense is absolutely designed in many respects for great dome play. They want good conditions because they want their passing offense to hum, to use and leverage the great talents, of course, of Justin Jefferson and Thielen. There are no superlatives this season that can do proper justice to Justin Jefferson. All right. Oh, yes, Tyreek Hill has more yards, but Jefferson has stepped up more times, not least, of course, in that Bills game, but in other times for his team when they really need it. And when they really need him, when you really want it, we know where Kirk Cousins is looking and who he's going to. It's funny you call out Mac Jones's stat line from last week, Brian. It almost sounds like a Kirk Cousins stat line. Great completion percentage, seems good in yards, but actually didn't put the ball in the end zone once. And the Patriots' red zone struggles are notable. They are 31st out of 32nd in terms of red zone offensive completion, in terms of turning them into touchdowns. The good news for the Patriots is they go up against a Minnesota team who has allowed 20 touchdowns on 28 red zone trips of their opponents. So is this the opportunity for the Patriots' red zone offense to suddenly come back to life against the wrong defense to face off against it? I like the Patriots' defense. They've been a subtle surprise this year. I think they're going to take advantage when Kirk Cousins puts the ball up, and it could be one of those Kirk Cousins horror shows where he just makes a few bad decisions, compounds the error, and you end up with 2 or 3 interceptions against him. This is, for me, a real case of McCrown, August McCree, my head or my heart in relation to it. The head, based on all the records thus far, does suggest the Vikings should win this, especially at home. But looking at, as I called out, their negative point differential on the show on Monday, and my heart, I think, is going to take over. And for illogical reasons, I will pick and go with the Patriots to come through in this particular game. Two of you boys, sorry, you did call out. You're both on the Vikings, am I right? Or had you actually called out your team?
I am on the Vikings. I think they will bounce back in what I expect to be a very competitive game. And I just think they'll probably have a little bit too much on offense and score a few too many points for the Patriots. But equally, I'm not going to be shocked if, as you say, Mark, Kirk Cousins does have one of those nights, and Bill Belichick, Matthew Judon, and the Patriots can take advantage.
We're talking about this offense rebounding after only scoring 3 points against the Cowboys last weekend. We got to see a bounce back from this defense as well, which for large parts of the season has done really well. I expect the defense to have a better game tomorrow night and put Mac Jones under pressure. And I also am selecting the Vikings to bounce back, Mark, unfortunately for your troubles.
I get it. I mean, Michael is also taking the Vikings, so I appreciate I'm the lone wolf in this one. But I'm also going to appreciate, and we didn't call out, this is a great Thanksgiving slate of games for NFL fans. At the weekend on Sunday, we only one game between two teams with winning records, the Bengals and the Titans. Whereas on Thanksgiving, we've 2 games between teams with winning records. And then the third game has the Bills against the 3-win streak Detroit Lions. So, hey, it's just joy for us all in terms of Thanksgiving. Colin, you're going to have to fit your Thanksgiving dinner in around all the myriad of football and won't have to stay up till 1:20 in the morning for this game. I, of course, will be, given the game and the team involved. But really hope you have a great day tomorrow. Enjoy all the football on order. And as you say, I know you've been over before in this scenario, but the American experience around Thanksgiving is pretty special as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, looking forward to that. And just very quickly before I drop, something I became aware of that's been happening, and I just wasn't aware of it. There is a guy on Twitter who started this video series about whether Russell Wilson had thrown more touchdowns than he had bathrooms in his house. He is now on week 11. The guy looks absolutely drained. He never thought he'd have to keep this going this long. I'm not sure how much longer he'll have to keep it going. But Russell Wilson to this point still has more bathrooms in his house than touchdown passes thrown for the Broncos.
12.
I'm really confused. Is the guy going to the toilet or something? What the hell? He's just saying he still has more bathrooms. What? Huh?
More bathrooms than touchdown passes. Anyway, gents, enjoy the slate of games tomorrow, and look forward to catching up with you when I get back next week.
Safe travels, Colin. Enjoy it and safe travel home. Take care of yourself. Brian, you were seeing my confusion. I had no idea what he was talking about for a second there.
So I'll explain it because I have seen it. So this guy comes on, I don't know, it's TikTok or Twitter or whatever platform he's using, and each week he essentially comes up and says, to date this season, Russell Wilson has thrown X amount of touchdowns and he has 12 bathrooms in his house, and he wants to get to the stage where he goes beyond the 12 bathrooms so he can drop off from doing it. But unfortunately, with the poor season in which they're having, he's continuously having to come on every Monday. I think he's up to 7. He didn't throw a touchdown on the weekend. It was a touchdown by
so he's it's more the constant depression for him in saying that. I get it. Okay.
Yeah, he will get there. Well, maybe not this season, but he might get there towards the back end.
Jesus Christ! I hope he gets this season for his
7. I think is the number right now, if I'm correct, Fusion by what he put up today. I believe he said 7 as opposed to the 12 bathrooms. Okay. Look, everybody needs a bathroom. I'm not sure if everybody needs 12 bathrooms, but however, there you go.
Okay. Well, you learn something new every day, as they say. And look, talking about learning something new, I'm going to save in your mind, Brian, the best till last, or maybe the worst till last, depending on how the game goes. But before we get to the Cowboys and the Giants, which is one of those 2 games with 2 teams with winning records, we should talk about the Bills and the Lions. Fred, I'm sure, will have some comments on the Cowboys if we go through it. But the Bills versus Lions, and as I say, Brian, I said it up there, the Bills, still with a winning record, still in control somewhat of the AFC East, albeit very competitive AFC East, level with Dolphins at 7-3, Jets and Patriots at 6-4. And if you told a Bills fan at the start of the season, lads, you're going to win a game in Detroit this year, they would have looked at the schedule, seen their away on Thanksgiving and gone, grand, of course we're going to win a game in Detroit because we're playing Detroit in Detroit. If you now told them you're only going to win 1 game in Detroit, they would be very, very disappointed because that would indicate they're going to lose this Sunday. Familiar surroundings from last week, but they are going up against a resurgent Detroit Lions, who are overcoming. They surprised us at the start of the season. They dropped off. They're resurging a little bit more. They're getting good player Jared Goff. They're looking very exciting on offense. And Superman Dan Campbell, the ex-player, he looks like a mean man to deal with, I'm sure, at the best of times, but he is the dude. He's got these players playing hard for him. They played hard for him last year. They're playing hard for him this year. Can they pull off a surprise on Thanksgiving in Detroit, which I know all of those fans there in Michigan would love to see?
Genuinely torn in this game. And it's mad to think that we're suggesting that, because when the schedule comes out and you look at the Thanksgiving game and you know the Lions are at home, you look to see who they're playing in terms of who's going to go in and beat them on Thanksgiving, because that's normally the case. I can't recall the last time the Lions played on Thanksgiving and they were genuinely competitive, and it's great to see. As a neutral who loves the NFL and seeing the Lions team, let's be fair, go through a lot of difficult years, it is great to see them rebounding, and they're exciting to watch. We spoke about earlier in the season the amount of points they were putting up offensively, and it was a struggle to the defense. And let's not get away from the fact where this defense is. Let's not have it clouded by last week's very strong performance. That they're 34th in the league for a reason. They're 34th against the run. They're 32nd worst defense in the league. But they have played very well over the past 3 weeks in the games in which they won. The Packers, people felt it was more against the Packers as how the Packers were playing throughout the course of the season. But they only allowed 9 points in that game against the Packers. They did a great job in the Giants last week. And the week in between that, with the other win, I can't recall who that game was against actually. But again, the fact that they've pulled off 3 wins in a row, it escapes me. I knew it the other night, but it's escaped me at the moment. But last week as well, like we've seen players from Williams who came in from Green Bay, and he was really good and strong on hard knocks at the start of the season in terms of seems to be one of the kind of leaders within the team. Swift, he actually they tailed off a little bit with Swift went off injured during the season. He's come back, they've got it back together. Last week was a big day for them rushing, over 160 yards, first game Williams ever had 3 touchdowns. There's other players, like we've seen Aiden Hutchinson, people were saying he was a slow starter, he wasn't getting the sacks, he was only getting the pressure on the quarterback. When were the sacks going to come? He's had 2 interceptions in critical situations in games so far. They won in the red zone against the Packers, and last week when the Giants were driving, when the Giants were leading and essentially in a position maybe to go further ahead in the game. So that was significant. He seems to be coming around and finding his feet. Amani St. Brown, I think they've got the players there, like offensively and defensively, to put it all together. And if they win this game, genuinely, they're in with a shot at the wild card. Like the wild card slot is 4 defeats. They've got 6 defeats. If they were to win this, they're 2 out. Who knows how this weekend will go. So, and then there'll be 4 wins in a row, and the momentum continues to build. The Bills needed that win last week. I felt against the Browns, like everybody felt they would win once the game was taken out of Buffalo with the adverse weather conditions. And they got it together. Josh Allen had one of his better games. Didn't rush as much, only had 8 yards rushing, but they did commit to the run last week. And Singletary had his best game of the season, 85 yards. Do you want to pick now? Or do you want to take?
No, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want to get your pick, and then we'll move on.
I will pick Bills, but I would not be surprised if the Lions pulled it off. We've seen this Bills team lose games now. This team that we felt having won in Kansas City earlier in the season, I think that was week 5. Everybody felt favourites for the Super Bowl, number 1 seed, inevitable to be number 1 seed of the AFC. Doesn't look like that's going to materialise the way the Chiefs are playing at the moment. And they had 2 difficult losses against the Minnesota game, and obviously the week prior to that against the Jets. I'll go Bills, but I really am genuinely. I could see this being a close game.
And I can see your logic in relation to it, and the challenges, and that's why I say they are a resurgent side in relation to it. I had to check it myself, but I thought it was the Chicago Bears was the other team they'd beaten on this.
But they were down with 14 points in the 4th quarter in that game, and they found a way to win. That's again shows the measure of a team that's hungry, committed to the head coach, aren't going to give up, and they won't give up on this game.
Look, they were all over the Giants last week, and the win against Green Bay wasn't as pretty, but it was a stiffening of the defense, of course, very notably so, and a game against someone you would say who has a hoodoo over them. So they break that voodoo, and I'm excited for the Bills, for the Lions for next year. Actually, I do see and think it's inevitable they upgrade a quarterback. In relation to things, and that might even help them go to the next level as well. Thank you, Owen, for the call out in relation to Shark. You're absolutely right, and they need those weapons, they need those options for Goff to be able to explore. the reality for me is when I still look, and yes, the Bills have had their injuries this year. When I look at that Bills defense, though, they are still a formidable unit. Yes, they have not played up to their potential, especially not in the losses they've suffered this game, and they're still waiting on really getting up to full strength again. But the reality is, they have the players. It's like, the $6 million man. They have the technology. They can rebuild you. They can take over a game. And I do worry still that Jared Goff at times can turn Cinderella. And we just mentioned about Kirk Cousins under the bright lights. Sorry, I'm more worried about Jared Goff under the bright lights than I am than Kirk Cousins. For me personally, the Bills, if it was the first half against Cleveland, it still looked like they were going to sleepwalk into another loss. It was not consistent at all. And finally, for the first time, you would say, arguably for the Bills in 2.5 games, they got to halftime, they got into the second half and kicked it back into gear. The defense started clicking. The offense absolutely started clicking. But you're right to call out the lack of rushing from Josh Allen. We did talk about it a little bit briefly, that it does change, and they have somewhat, it seems, changed their game plans. They are very much featuring Singletary in the run game. They're not putting Josh Allen at risk as much, it seems, in terms of their play calling and committing him to the run. He's also quite obviously not scrambling as much, but that does remove a very potent and irritating, in many respects, sense of their offense. You can say the same thing a little bit around Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson this year. They both have seemed less mobile, so that takes a large part of their arsenal away. Because the most annoying thing about Aaron Rodgers, when you've covered all the receivers that you can find with pinpoint accuracy, and he somehow then scrambles on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, that's a big part of Josh Allen's game in terms of his mobility at quarterback as well. So when it comes to all of those aspects, yes, I see the troubles and the struggles the Bills are going through. Yes, I have full credit for the Lions and how they're turning it around, because it did look bad for a period of time. It looked like they were going to fall off a cliff and be crash landing. But for me personally, it's a big game on Thanksgiving. Yes, the Lions are home. Yes, they'll be pumped. It's going to be tight for a half. The Lions are going to have a chance in the third quarter. The Bills' defense will stiffen, and then the offense will step up and put it away. It's not going to be a Thanksgiving blowout, but the Bills will win by more than a touchdown, in my view, when all is said and done.
Do you see it as a high-scoring game?
I do, because Thanksgiving games often are high-scoring games, maybe because the defense is asleep, especially in Detroit. And we said it, like, the Detroit Lions offense is an exciting offense. It's like the red zone offense, like the Falcons are putting points on the board this year. And especially in a year where the unders are hitting at an exponential rate and net scoring is down. There are a few teams, and the Lions are one of them, that do still put points on the board. And the other end, they giveth and receiveth, if you like. They are definitely open on defense. So for that reason, I think this is probably, in my mind, the highest scoring game of the slate.
It's reflective of the number. It's reflective of the total number, which is 54 points. That's the expectation that we're going to hit over 54. So you're looking at a 30-27 type of game, or give or take, depending.
There you go. We know Bills Mafia. There's a good few Bills, Buffalo Bills, and other Bills fans over here in Ireland. You'll be pleased to know that Colin and Michael also concur with us. So we have a full slate of unanimous views from the Irish NFL show that the Bills will be the victorious this Thanksgiving. Before we move on, we'll go to a couple of questions and comments here. Owen Bryan, I'll put this to you first. I'd rather trade for a quarterback than go for a first-round pick. We've played our way down the pecking order to get an immediate upgrade on Goff. Now, great point. They're going to be obviously drafting lower in the slots, given the fact that they've won a few games now. How do you see that, and what's your view on it? And indeed, who would you trade for in that regard with that first-round pick?
Well, the Lions have 2 first-round picks next year, but again, it kind of still reflective of where that second pick is, and it's a Vikings pick. So the Vikings, the way they're going, are going to be, well, give or take 26 to 32, depending on where their season ends. So it is a difficult one, and it's kind of noted as a number of teams in the league. Like I would have said at the start of the season, Giants, for example, now they played themselves into that situation as well. Where did they go for this quarterback? I know there's always a surprise come the off-season, a quarterback's released that we don't expect, and let's be fair, Jimmy Garoppolo won't be in San Francisco next year. I'd be stunned if he's there, and he is the obvious candidate for teams to go for in free agency. There seems to be a lot of talk that it's the Jets. The Jets have that relationship with Salah, and LaFleur was in San Francisco. It makes sense. They have a similar type of offense. Garoppolo he knows the division. He's been at the Patriots. It just makes so much sense for him to be at the Jets next year. So I would take him out of the picture. But again, I could be wrong. But I just don't know where the lines will go. But and maybe it is unfortunately in a situation where they might just have to run it back with Goff for another year and see where they're at.
Yeah, no, maybe it is. And there are always surprises in relation to it, purely because I just want to call some AFC North angst in relation NFC North angst in relation to it. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers seem to be falling out quite vociferously. Can you imagine if he ever pulled a Brett Favre and went to a divisional rival? That would certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons. The reality is, and I don't necessarily disagree, if they're picking too low to have a meaningful impact at quarterback, they may have to consider a trade, or they may have to consider going for an existing quarterback. But is it, and how much of an upgrade is it, is always the key question. Obviously, you go back to quarterback drafts ago, you're picking up Justin Fields. Fields went at 11, I think, to Chicago, wasn't it? Mac Jones went to the Patriots at 15. You can reserve your views on Mac Jones and Justin Fields if you like, but they are picking up what they consider to be their franchise quarterbacks of the future later in the draft. Albeit, again, seminal draft, the only one since there have only been 3 drafts, 83, 2011, and that draft, I think, if I remember correctly, they've had 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. However, there's a good few quarterbacks coming out in the draft. We'll see how it all transpires. But like the way you're thinking, of course, a number of teams made drafts or changes for quarterbacks this year. We can look at the Geno Smith experiment in Seattle that's come off so strongly and so well. And then you compare it to the Baker Mayfield experiment down in the Carolina Panthers and go, well, actually, it goes a horrible direction alternatively as well. Jimmy G could be an interesting one in relation to it. Okay, Brian, let's pull up any other questions we've got in the hopper there.
Yeah, this kind of probably reflective of where we're going with the next game, the NFC East clash tomorrow between the 7-3 Giants and the 7-3 Cowboys. But Fred has been in touch, and this game seems to be the OBJ Bowl, as a lot of people are suggesting that the winner of this also wins the rights to have him for the remainder of the season. Fred is suggesting it's getting Ronaldo-ish in terms of how he's playing it out, which I found quite amusing. I would actually tend to agree with Fred on this one. I think he's playing both sides. I don't know if you picked up at the weekend. 1 minute he was tweeting about the Giants, and then the following hour, once the Cowboys game was on, he was tweeting about the Cowboys, and there's a lot of attention seeking seems to be going on. Are
you suggesting OBJ is attention seeking? What? Brian, shock, horror. That is news and surprise to me. It's the biggest diva in the bloody NFL. But yes,
Owen's touched on it as well. He's followed up and saying he'd be a good fit. Look.
Look at it this way. All right, I'll take this one first. Like, OBJ has to prove he's fit first. Like, he has to prove he's fit. He has to prove he can make and contribute a difference. He is coming off serious knee surgery for the second time in his career, if not more. He had something minor earlier in his career, remember, as well. So it is not as though he is a young buck and he's destined to come back the same player he was. If I'm being truly neutral and analyzing this, if he joined the Giants, even at 80% of where he was last year, I think he instantly becomes your WR1. He is an upgrade on that. And that's a reflection on the troubles with Tony, the troubles with Golladay, and different scenarios that have not planned out as New York probably planned at the start of the season. If he joins Dallas, it actually could be a better position for him, because bear in mind, last year with the Rams, he was extremely effective. He looked fantastic in the Super Bowl because, frankly, he was getting singled up while Kupp was drawing all the attention. So you want a scenario where there are other receiving threats that can take the pressure away. And if you're comparing that scenario, Dallas is inherently more attractive in that regard. Equally, it's a much more of a not quite a pass-first offense. They're pretty balanced, but they are going to pass the ball probably a lot more than New York, who are going to lean upon Saquon and that running game in the first instance. But, you know, the guys hit it on the head a lot. I mean, is it all about will they, won't they? What's going to happen with ODB? I mean, the amount of noise and media speculation around it all, I'm very much on the boat of kind of going, okay, number one, let's see if the guy's healthy, first and foremost. Number two, let the teams have a look at him and see, is he going to actually add something? But the idea that someone might make a move for him for belief that it will take him over the top, yeah, why not? Why not give a flyer on him, especially if your passing game is ineffective and you feel that he is healthy? Go for it.
Go for it. I think, look, it seems to be general consensus that it's down to the Giants and the Cowboys. Where I'd see it very differently is, I think the Cowboys will sign him no matter what the circumstances are of the injury. I think they will feel that they're in a position that they're in a win now type of situation, similar to what the Rams had last year, and they will make a move and they'll sign him, no matter how he comes out of the medical, and even if they give him some kind of practice session. Where with the Giants, I think the Giants didn't make any moves on the trade deadline when everybody felt they would for the wide receiver, because I still think Joe Shane is working on the basis this is not a winnable season, and things have gone a lot better than planned, and we're not going to mortgage the future, because essentially he is looking for a long-term. He did an interview recently where he said, I'm looking for a long-term deal here. This is not me like last year going to the Rams for the remainder of the season with an opportunity to potentially go to the Super Bowl. It's me looking to get a 2-3 year deal somewhere, proving I'm fit and proving I'm ready. And I think if the Giants see any reason as to why he's not ready, they won't do the deal.
Yeah. I was mishearing you there. I thought Joe Shane was talking about looking for a long-term deal, and then I was like, oh no, you're talking about OBJ talking.
Well, Sterling Shepard has come out today and said he wants to go to the Giants. He's, by all accounts, his best buddy. But again, who knows? I think
look at it this way. If you want an historical precept, of course, very different scenario, but Jerry Jones loving taking primetime Deion Sanders from the 49ers. I love taking Terrell Owens from the Philadelphia Eagles. Taking a star player from a rival is not beyond him or unusual in that regard in relation to it. So definitely up to it. Owens line, Giants probably have no notion, only saying it to up his price on Dallas. Love it. It's not
a bad shout. In fairness, I've seen that being suggested as well, that he's going to find, they'll use the narrative that he's been offered XYZ in New York, and the Cowboys are going to pay. I imagine the Cowboys will pay whatever. I don't buy into this thing that they're saying whoever wins this game gets OBJ. I don't buy into that at all. Whoever loses this game at the weekend, well, it's a difficult. Well, and to be honest, I think we both know who's going to lose this game. I think it'll be the Giants. We'll come to that in a second. But just Giants.
Whoever pick there a little bit, everybody. But
whoever loses this game still has a lot to play for. So I don't think OBJ would say, okay, this team is a better opportunity to go to playoffs. I'm going to go to them. I think he'll do what's right for him. But I still think it's the Cowboys. I think it's always been the Cowboys. I think he wants to have that star on the star helmet. And I heard. Someone said today, I hate that it's true, but every player wants to play for the Cowboys. That's what a former NFC East player said. So I found that quite interesting. But we'll see. We could be surprised.
Do you know? Yeah, I don't think that's untrue at all. And Jerry, in fairness, you can criticize him for a lot of things. Have done a lot to create that mystique. Does a lot for ex-players to set them up in the Dallas area and kind of give them the whole spiel and the talk track about what it means to be a Dallas Cowboy and the opportunities created post playing career. And yeah, I think that's true. Look, for a while, New England Patriots used to have people wanting to play with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and see what it was like there. I missed that last comment. Was that you're smiling? So I'm just Deion was a game changer park on both sides, but he absolutely was. Still, look. I'm not saying I was part of his generation. I was too much of a kid, but they were he was one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, he was in the NFL 100, amazing cornerback, amazing punt returner. I particularly liked Fred, his time with the 49ers. I thought he played really well there, to be honest with you. So I'm just waiting for Fred to respond on that one. Anyway, Brian, we kind of tipped the cap a little bit, but we should get on to that Giants and Chargers game. And to close out, actually, just the Ronaldo comparisons, to the last word on OBJ. Ronaldo's noise this week about him turning down a $305 million deal to a Saudi club during the summer. You ever wanted a point of like, I'm still worth it and you should still pay me money? It's funny how that noise only leaks now, and he's trying to set a price or get a price for a different environment, different scenario. We'll move on past that because I know you being a Man United fan, it hurts dearly. and me being an Arsenal fan and being top of the table, I mean, I'm sure you don't want to talk about soccer, so it's okay. We won't go there, Brian.
Talk about the Glazers selling up if you want.
Let's talk about the Giants and the Cowboys, and yeah, look, two teams that are playing great stuff. There was a lot of doubts about the Cowboys at the start of the season with some of the losses in personnel. They have definitely made up for it. They've still made some confusing decisions at times. We criticized quite rightly, I think, a couple of weeks ago, not putting Parsons on the edge, putting him back at linebacker and making him severely ineffective and leaving him somewhat on an island. They are coming off a tonking, and there is no other word, thumping, tonking, destruction, annihilation, all adjectives are appropriate, of the Minnesota Vikings, 40-3. It was the biggest win since Goliath's giant mates finally called up to David and gave him a kick in afterwards. And the Giants, of course, are coming off the season is above expectations, Brian, but they are coming off their most disappointing performance of the season, a quite comprehensive loss, and the same token to the Detroit Lions, who are very much value for the win. With the Giants heading in one direction at the moment and the Cowboys heading in the other, with that defense clicking and the offense very much starting to get back up to speed again. They seem to get the right balance between Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. I don't mean to dump on you. I don't want you to go into depression here. I don't want to send you over the edge in relation to it. I noticed the Giants gear isn't on you today, so I do worry about your mental well-being, my friend, but how do you feel this game is going to go, and how many points are the Cowboys going to win by?
Yeah, I know. It certainly has that feel about it. It has that feel about it all week, because you wouldn't think this was 2-7-3 teams going into this game, the way in which the media have spoke about this game all week. And I can totally understand the Cowboys are coming off their biggest road win in NFL history. They're making all sort of records. It was the first time 2 weeks ago in which they played 195 games in their career and they never lost a game where they went into a fourth quarter, 14 points up. They had a negative stat, and then last week they had a great stat in terms of their highest ever road win in NFL history for the Cowboys. The Giants, it's just like you look at the players that are out. I wrote these down yesterday, Mark, and it's even got worse since, but I'm going to call them out anyway. Evan Neal, the rookie first rounder, he's out. Ujulari, he's been out for quite some time. Wan'Dale Robinson, second round pick, did his ACL last Sunday. Good wide receiver, has been playing quite well. McKinney broke his hand a few weeks ago on the bye week. Monroe, cornerback, played really well this season, took him in from the Falcons last year. He's out. Adoree Jackson, our best cornerback, out. Injured on a punt return last week, gone for 4 to 5 weeks. Bellinger, tight end, hasn't come back from the eye injury a few weeks ago. Feliciano, offensive line centre, out. And then today, it's been confirmed that other guys within the offensive line are out. So right now, the only player of the starting offensive line that is available for tomorrow's game is Andrew Thomas, and he's since gone on the doubtful list because he is carrying an illness. And there seems to be a bug going around. In fairness, this bug genuinely seems to be going around the NFL, because on the flip side, Micah Parsons is suffering from it and DeMarcus Lawrence is also suffering from it. Maybe they won't be at 100%. For the Giants to pull off the shock, they ran the ball really well effectively against them in week 3. Despite the loss, Barkley had a great game. They have to rely on him and just find a way to keep him on the field, keep moving the clock, keep the Cowboys offense off the field for as long as possible and try to grind this defense down. It's a big ask. I can't say. What I would say is, you don't look too far ahead, but the Giants play Washington in on Sunday week. And even if they had to lose this game, they're still in the wildcard position. And I looked at it today and people have talked about it. Effectively, they need 3 wins to get into a wildcard.
Yeah.
So, there's a part of me that feels like this is one of those games that was always going to be. That's why last Sunday's defeat, to be honest, for the Giants' perspective, was really disappointing, because,
you were putting a W beside it. You were thinking this is a game we should win.
I wasn't putting a W beside it. I was recognising that 3 wins were needed. Where's the best opportunity to get those 3 wins? A home game against the Lions. Going into Dallas on a Thursday night off a short week with all these injuries, it's very unrealistic.
Brian, I think it's fair to say, I think every fan does that a little bit. You look through the schedule and you look back, we should win that game. We might drop that game. That's a bit tricky. But there are definitely games you look at and you feel like we should win. Happened to me earlier this season. The Patriots were getting on a bit of a roll. We're playing Bears on Monday night. I was thinking, we should win this, and this is going to put us in a great position. And Justin Fields decides to wake up, and the Chicago Bears suddenly found out how to design an offense for him, and it goes in a completely different direction. That's part of the joy and the pain and the suffering of being a fan at the same token as well. But, I think you sum it up really well. The reality is, yes, if the if the Cowboys front seven is compromised, then that potentially gives you some hope, I would say. But the reality is, they can't do their run fits as bad as they did 2 weeks ago. They can't. They're not going to repeat the same mistakes of the past. The fact they've played each other once and Dallas won that, and they know they'd have to shore up that running game defense a little bit further is probably a favoritism towards Dallas in that regard, because they've seen the blocking schemes and patterns for the Giants, seen some attacks. And look, one thing this Dallas team is doing really well is rushing the passer. I think they've got 5 players who have 4 sacks or more. It's certainly been the spreading love, albeit Micah obviously is the standout performer. So the idea that they can exploit or attack a makeshift offensive line or a patched up offensive line is the thing that would give me particular concern if I was a Giants fan in that regard, because if the O-line's not performing, then you're not getting the running game going. You're putting it all on Daniel Jones' shoulders to potentially throw under pressure. And whilst he's stepped up in a lot of circumstances this season, that is not a scenario that is positive for you. By contrast, until last week, that Giants defense is good, but it's remarkable when you break it down and go through it. They were living off getting people off the field on third down and almost a bend don't break. Like, people would get into the red zone, they'll get field goals rather than touchdowns. And in many respects, there's always an argument, is that sustainable? Because it was like people were churning up the field, they were getting down, but they would get a stop or they would get a turnover. And in fairness, they were generating some turnovers in relation to it. Whereas last week, it was a kind of case of almost like that's the first time they didn't generate those game changes. And therefore, naturally, the result is very different. Against this Cowboys offense, who don't really need to put it in the air as much, but when they do, they've got Dak Prescott, they've got CeeDee Lamb, they've got talent all around in relation to it. But most importantly, they don't even have to put it in the air because that much or in an unsafe facility, because Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott are a great 1-2 punch. They probably, Fred saying there, the 1-2 punch will open up the passing game. They probably, I think, in the last few weeks, or certainly last week in particular, seemed like they got the balance right. Zeke coming in on the goal line, Tony Pollard obviously having a career game in the receiving game, but the balance right in terms of how to leverage the two of them. There's been a lot of talk, the Dallas Cowboys running backs coach coming out early in the season and saying, Tony Pollard can't have more than 25 carries or 25 touches a game because then his production falls off. And people pointing out, well, actually, if you look at the games in which he did have more than 25, his production increases. But they balance and give each other flexibility there, whereas the Giants are so reliant on Saquon. Saquon Barkley called out on Monday, as you know, he rushed 35 times against the Texans and things like that. Those tires, I mean, Matt Breida comes in for a snap or two, but the mile on those tires is not good and is not sustainable in relation to it. Now, any given Sunday, Giants get a couple of turnovers. Prescott and the offense starts to feel the pressure at home on Thanksgiving, nationwide TV audience.
Hasn't been a good spot for them over the last few years in Thanksgiving.
It hasn't, but I feel like, Jerry Jones has gone from we have a problem 2 weeks ago to this team could go and win the Super Bowl. It's definitely got Super Bowl connotations on it, and wide open NFC this year. Let's call a spade a spade. It is an absolutely wide open NFC this year. So I don't discount that be the first time since 1995. That was when Ronaldo. No, it wasn't when Ronaldo was born. I was just trying to be facetious. It's when Prime was playing, when Dion was playing. There you go. I can't see past them, Brian. I mean, the Giants are worthwhile if they're 7-3 record. You are what your record says they are. They are. But this seems designed for the Cowboys to prove it. And who knows? Maybe they lay the proverbial goose egg on Thanksgiving. Turkey egg wouldn't really work. Goose egg. But I am going for the Cowboys to win. I know you said already you're going for the Cowboys to win, and you will be delighted, Exira and Delira, to note, Brian, that Colin and Michael are also in favor of the Cowboys taking.
Gives me hope. It gives me hope, Mark.
So for those of you keeping track at home, the Irish NFL shows unanimous curse has been applied now against the Bills and against the Cowboys, and only the inner workings of my mechanical heart are stopping us going unanimous on the Vikings to beat the Patriots, which I'm probably going to be proved wrong on, but sure. I want to give you boys a chance in the Picks League. That's what it is. Brian, before, as I said, sorry, I should say for the benefit of everyone else, we will be sharing our picks for the rest of the Sunday games. Obviously, a decent slate on Sunday on Twitter on our graphic and/or on a tweet later in the week. So we'll make sure to get that out for the weekend, so you can hold us all to appropriate judgment or a proprium when we go against your team and are proved subsequently wrong. Anything else on the comments there, Brian, just before we wrap up from the guys? Fred, give me any.
Owen came back in with just saying that if the Giants can't stop Williams and Swift, they won't be stopping Zeke and Pollard. I would challenge that because every game is different in the NFL and every combination is different. And Giants have held their own against the run for quite a lot of the season against other teams, which I felt had better running backs. I'd say Jones and AJ Dillon, for example, in London. So sometimes when you have a bad game against particular running backs, you find yourself rebounding very well the following week. But it's a hard ask. Let's be fair.
It's a hard ask, and I think Owen has a point. In fairness,
and then Fred is in with let's go Cowboys. I think we'll leave that one off the screen. We've
well, look, it's one of the greatest weeks for NFL fans. You've got a great slate of games on a Thursday, doubled up on the Sunday, and then still Monday Night Football to look forward to as well. So if your team's on a bye, if your team's playing, just enjoy. Hopefully, some of you watching obviously in the US, enjoy Thanksgiving and the special time with your families. And for all of you in Ireland, take the day off. Try to maybe cancel a few of those meetings on the Friday morning. Enjoy a beverage or two and have a good night enjoying all of the NFL action. Brian, it's just time to say Ihoa, and we'll see everybody on Monday night, probably coming to you about 9:30, 10 o'clock. We'll figure out the time shortly as a wrap-up of the weekend's action and, of course, all the reaction to even the Thursday night Thanksgiving games as well.
That's right.
You're saying goodbye? Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.